The U.S. to help the Cubans fight their revolution. When the U.S. ignored him, he attacked the U.S.-owned sugar fields to get the U.S. to send troops, but this ultimately failed. Newspapers in the U.S. began to print stories about Cuban citizens being put into death camps. The U.S. public became enraged by this. The Day-Loam letter was exposed by the U.S. newspapers, and newspapers spread lies about concentration camps. The explosion of the USS Maine was blamed upon the Spanish. William Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer ran competing newspapers. They both want their paper to be more successful than the other, so they both exaggerate news to get people to buy their newspaper. George Dewey was the commander of the U.S. fleet that was near the Philippines when war broke out. He destroyed the Spanish fleet that was in the Philippines in a matter of hours. The United States started a blockade around Cuba to keep the Spaniards out of Cuba. The Rough Riders were a volunteer group in the Army that Theodore Roosevelt joined after stepping down from being the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. When the U.S. blockaded, in 1898, the U.S. signed a treaty with Spain in Paris. The treaty heavily favored the U.S. The U.S. was rewarded the Philippines, Cuba, and Guam. At the end of the war, the U.S. was given Guam and Cuba and bought the Philippines for $20 million. The U.S. also received Puerto Rico, and the U.S. set up local governments in each of these territories.